Okay. I think we're back. Hold on. Let me double check to make sure everything's all good again. Yeah, we're back. My bad, man. What were you saying though? What were you saying?
Should I start over?
Yeah, let's go ahead and start over what you were saying, and we'll skip the pleasantries and get right into it this time.
All right, cool. All right, cool. Yeah. So I didn't. I knew this new Spider-Man was coming up, but I didn't know exactly what to think of it. Didn't really have an opinion because I mean we get Spider-Man shows all the time, so it wasn't on my radar. And then like I saw an article, I'm just like, okay, cool. People are gonna have like their feedback about it, going into it and everything from the art style to all that. Like I try my best to keep the blinders on and just like pay attention to like some initial impressions and go off of my own strength. So I watched the trailer. I'm like, oh, okay, this is a fresh take on Spider-Man. I like this. And then I watched it. I'm like, oh, this is much better than I thought it would be. And everything from the characters, even the art design, it's like a comic CGI type of thing. Are we going to talk about that again? You wanted me to talk about the old Spider-Man, like one from the 2000s?
You can. I mean, for people that aren't aware, like, yeah, there's been a plethora of Spider-Man animated series at this point, from the Unlimited one to the one you're talking about, the 2000s one that was really CGI. That I don't remember too much. I remember I didn't love it, but I don't think it was terrible from when I like immediately off the top of my head.
No, I recently rewatched it earlier last year, and I was like, okay, this was cool. Like it was short; it was only the one season, but it was more like mature situations because he was in college and everything, and him and Harry had the bachelor pad, the roommates and everything like that. They got girls coming by the crib, they going out for drinks. Like it was a fresh take. But now Spider-Man's back in high school, and so he's going through those dorky things that a high school teenager goes through. But now Queens, where he's living at, looks more like Queens. It's not just a bunch of people of the same type of archetypes that we're used to. And, that was like a red flag for a lot of people who want to see Spider-Man or other characters in a certain way. And I think that the liberal chances they took were authentic in this case. So, and there's different ways you can do I guess a palette swap or like a swap of gender or ethnicity and everything. But we'll get into that more later. But I liked it. The first two episodes were definitely impressive.
Yeah, I enjoyed this too, and a lot of the things before we get into the controversial stuff, because the controversial stuff is going to be and be a little depressing.
Yeah.
But as quality, I will say the only issues I had with it was some of the animation. I feel like some of the swinging scenes and some of the action scenes weren't the smoothest. I think the first episode with some of the strange stuff, we'll get into like light spoilers here, y'all, but there's like a Doctor Strange interaction in like the first like 10 minutes of the first episode that were okay.
Yeah.
But like most of the swinging scenes in the first two episodes, I'm like, it kind of reminds me like the first season of Invincible a little bit, where like the writing on it was A1, but some of the animation was kind of and maybe this will improve as the season goes on. Maybe it's a next season thing. I don't know. It's not terrible though, but it is something I noticed. And the next thing was, to your point, like the world building and how in depth this world is built out is very interesting. If anything else, like just the heroes and the characters they brought in. One thing that I really and I guess this kind of tangentially translates into some of the clickbaity controversial stuff with Dr. Connors a little bit, but one thing that I mentioned in the post I had was like, instead of trying to add a fresh coat of paint to stuff by changing colors or genders and stuff, like, hey, if you want to introduce more Black representation or Asian representation, Marvel has a laundry list of characters you can go pull from. Bring them in, write them in, or create your own. I think my immediate reaction was like looking at X-Men Evolution, how they like either twisted the whole version of Marrow from the Morlocks and made him Spike and made him Aurora's nephew. And they created X-23, who's now like a fan favorite character in the movies now in Deadpool 2, and she has her own comic runs that right now are doing pretty well. So you can take those creative liberties to give a fresh take and also bring in what you want to see. And initially, what I think a lot of people thought this was, and to me to a certain extent, was that they were just going to race swap people to add a fresh coat of paint, almost similar to Velma in the Velma series. Although there is that to an extent with some characters in here, and we'll see how they like. Because my biggest thing is, if you're going to make a character Black, now you then have to go into writing how Black people perceive the world and how they move throughout the world, especially her being a scientist. Because I'm like, you can't just change them and then have them be written the exact same way. Like, the nuances of how they live aren't the same now. And that was my biggest gripe with it. It felt like sometimes especially because these characters are just made Black and not ever made Spanish or Asian or Native American, it's always like, oh, we'll make them Black. And that's always the big thing to get people to watch the thing, to see it crash or fall. But there's a lot of characters. It's long story short, but there's a lot of characters in this that I was like, man, they put her in here and him in here. Like off the top of my head, like his best friend in this series that is playing like a really great role to me, and her voice actor's doing great, is Nico. And for a lot of people that aren't aware of who that is, Nico is, I think she's like, I can't remember her character name, because usually whenever you see her, she's usually only going by her actual government being Nico. But she was in the Runaways in the series that I thought was pretty cool. And I'm playing through a run of Midnight Suns right now. She's usually an infamous Midnight Suns member. So she's cool, and you see her a lot throughout the comics, but she's kind of a deep cut character, but she's had her hints of shining here and there in different stuff. And then Lonnie, like Tombstone, is a significant character here. I'm like,
that's Tombstone. Yes. I didn't even look. Like I did no background research on these. These people were mostly new to me too. So okay, so he's gonna be. That's crazy.
They went to deep cut a lot of this stuff. Because as soon as I heard the name, I was like, oh, is that Tombstone? Okay, Tombstone's we're gonna actually see him get the shot. I don't know if he'll be a hero. I don't know if this is gonna be like an Ultimate Spider-Man type of thing, to where he like reforms a lot of the villains to be his best friend on some Naruto type of shit, or if it's gonna be okay, are we gonna see this character go full villain? Because we've seen enough of him in the way he's brought up to where I could see where he maybe turns full villain. Even his crush Pearl, like she is at least in the comics, a character that's similar to like Namor, where she has like aqua manipulation abilities, and like there's a lot of Amadeus Cho is in here in the lab as well, which he's a Hulk. You brought in a Wakandan. Like they're bringing in so many characters who in the comics have significant abilities to where I'm like, okay, how many seasons are we going to go down the line between now and then where you're going to see just all these people pop up with abilities and how this show changes? So they added in a lot of potential storylines.
It seems like they're setting up a lot of different things, because I heard Daredevil is in it as well, which is a nice take and everything.
I think Charlie Cox got casted as him as well too.
Yeah. And it's like you got all these different characters you're bringing in. I'm like, oh, they setting up, and then I don't know if I'm not going to get into a spoiler at the end of episode 2, but I was like, oh, word, okay, all right, you have my interest, and now I'm hooked in. Like this is a lineup for dope things, and of course. You never really want to rush. Like if a person who comes off as like a good regular person going into full villain mode or full whatever mode, you never really want to rush that. You feel me? So I would hope that they have things really fleshed out and they take their time with this, because they could really. It just seems like no shows are like 26 episodes anymore, right? It's like 6 or 8, maybe 12, and then they done with a season, right? So I think that there's a good way to take their time with this. Maybe they cap it at 12, a good solid 12, and then they go into the next joint. But I love the approach so far. It seems like they really getting things done. I didn't even pay attention to the swinging scene, so funny you mentioned that. I'm gonna go back and look at that, because. Like Spider-Man swinging is just so unique to Spider-Man. Like it's not like mad characters fly. You can do flying so many ways, but there's only a few characters who are going to swing like that, and they really are. Almost all of them are Spider-Verse characters. So now I'm gonna go back and check that out.
Yeah, it's gonna be. It's hard to. I don't even know if it's hard to do at this point, because again, we've got so many shows doing it. So I'm like, okay. It's tough. It's tough because I don't want to be too hard on it, but I feel like that's something that should have been a big focus, because Spider-Man doesn't do too many things that are super unique to him in regards to some acrobatic fighting, but like him swinging is such a unique thing to him, to where I'm like, you have enough examples of how to do it right at this point to where I feel like it should be done really well. And again, it could just be a budget thing. It could be maybe a stylistic choice. I don't know, but maybe it's just me. I don't know, but I know it looked kind of odd to me when I was looking at the swinging, because that was like a set piece for like the end of the first episode and some of the second.
Was it like the motion attached to it, or was it like the way he was moving with it?
It was like him moving. It seemed like a little like stiff. It didn't seem fluid, and the world around him at that moment in time it literally looked like something in front of something moving. If that makes sense, it didn't feel like it was one thing. It felt like it was two things moving at the same time.
Yeah. I can see that, because I mean, it does seem like a newer type of animation style. Like a lot of people didn't like the what do they call it? Like the 2.5 animation style, like that was used with King and Ashura and Ajin and everything like that. So I think that even no wait, that was full animation, but like I think that's kind of like it's an experimentation type of thing. They're trying to see what works and what doesn't. So hopefully, like you said, in later episodes, it does improve a little bit. Plus, I know it's like he's still new. He's only a few months into being Spider-Man, so maybe they'll switch up with that as well. So we'll see.
That's honestly my hope. Because they're again, I think the show has a lot of potential to do well. Like I really do believe in this. Especially again with all the things they set up by just introducing characters in, and then you've already kind of established how in depth this world is by saying, okay, Wakanda exists in this world. We have a Wakandan here. We have people that are connected to the Hulk in certain ways with Amadeus show. You have other people that maybe they change their background around the way they don't have powers at all. But you have a lot of potential here. And I think this show could run for at least bare minimum like 3 to 4 seasons using all these storylines. You can get a storyline off like everybody close to him, let alone like the big thing that the reveal at the end of the second episode where I'm like, okay, this is new. This is a new thing here. But I would like to ask like the motivation for race and gender swapping certain characters like Curt Connors, because I do think that is a big point of contention on the internet that I've seen. With a lot of people talking about like they feel, I think one comment I saw in the post I put up was he feels like that Black people have been so starved for representation that we kind of take anything. And to an extent, I feel like that's right, because I think that we take all representation as good representation, which in my opinion, I'm like, okay, it's one of those things that we're like, I'm pro-Black, everything I see a Black person is something, oh, cool, that's great. But are they there for the right reasons? Are we just putting a Black face in something as a marketing ploy? Or are you doing your due diligence to make sure that you put a Black person in there, not just a person that happens to be Black? And then sometimes you need that. That could be a thing too, where they just want Black faces in something to show we're not a monolith. But I think there's a certain way you write that, and I want to make sure it's not just a marketing ploy. And that was my biggest thing, is like make sure that there are other characters in here, like they are that show that representation, that aren't just reskins.
Yeah. For a writer to kind of come in, especially if they don't belong to a certain group or whatever, for them to write somebody they maybe don't have that many conversations with, or maybe that don't have that much exposure to, for them to kind of write that. It's like, who do they go to? Do they talk to like that one Black friend they have in their group, or whoever, and they kind of get inspiration from that? Do they go to the media? Do they watch a bunch of TikToks and memes and just kind of scroll through and be like, I think that's what they talk about. I think this is something they would say. Because they got stuff like American Dad, right? How it kind of at some point they like the characters in there, the white characters started saying like shit that Black people would say, right? And you were like watching like, like who are they talking to? Where they over here taking turns grinding on a freaking couch cushion, listening to Pony by Genuine. You know what I mean? That was like so coded. I'm like, wait, who did y'all talk to get that? So, but now you're if you're writing characters with a range of emotions and everything like that, like we see Lonnie, who is this, smart kid, really open guy, plays football, is a star and everything like that. But then he's on the walk home, and you see where he's coming from. But he still goes home to a family that loves him. He's got 2 parents in the household. He's not he's not in that stereotype of the rough kid who's living in the hood. Like he's actually a mix of different things. So, which I'm happy about, because like you said, Black people are not a monolith. But there are some experiences that a lot of us go through that translate when it's time to write us. So I think they're going in an interesting direction with that. And like even with Dr. Connors, her being, and I don't know if she's brown or Black or whatever, some people are mixed with 2 different types of brown or 3 different types of brown. So because one of the things I said when I saw people under those comments and somebody posted a picture, I was just like, yo, I think y'all are worried about the wrong thing. I think y'all should be worried about what if a Black or brown woman, let's just say a Black woman, could turn into a man mauling lizard. If she's got one arm, she's disabled, she's differently abled, Black woman, also mad smart. Those little microaggressions that happen in that lab, because I know they happening, right? I know they like, oh, hey, Dr. Connors, you want to go karaoke? I heard the karaoke bar has some Mary J. Blige you could sing. You know what I mean? Like things like that. Those little microaggressions. Right. If she could turn into a lizard, guess who the first person she's going off is? Everybody in her office. Okay, like you're in danger. You know what I mean? So I think that you open up the door for what would a person like that do in that type of situation. You know what I mean? She's probably hearing different things than like the regular Dr. Connors would hear. And I think that that's what makes putting putting a character into a different skin quite literally opens up the door for, because you get to kind of explore the world through a different person's eyes.
Right.
And you have the opportunity to kind of just add something different. You know what I mean? Like the old Spider-Man cartoon from like the 90s. Like I said in my video, like all the villains and most of the characters were whites, or at least light skinned, right? Like even Blade was a little on the light side. You're like, okay, how black is he? And I think he was even played by I don't know. But anyway, so you got things like that. And then like you look at all the other variations and all that. So yeah, so I think that you get the opportunity to play around with the character. But then the other thing I said in my video was that sometimes people who are of a different ethnic group, like we all go through the same type of shit. You know what I'm saying? We might feel like we as different as we are, some of us go through the same stuff. So that's like the difference between like making a character a different ethnic group for one reason or one way, but then making them kind of the same, but just doing a palette swap. So I think there's like an interesting middle ground that you can play on. But like she ain't got, like Dr. Connors ain't got to talk with the full, accent and wear hoop earrings to to her job, to her workplace, right?
Right.
So yeah, man, that's what I'm thinking so far about it.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. I will. The only thing I'll say about it is, again, I love seeing. I'm Mr. Representation. I put out a lot of shit about representation. I'm really big on it,
for sure.
And in that same token, I do start to feel bad at some point for like my friends who are Asian, who are Latin, who are Native American, where usually when people talk about diversity in a lot of these different shows, movies, it's like, all right, well, let's make it black then. I'm like, well, there's already, at least for me in Marvel, I've talked about it before. I feel like there's a lot of black people that have been pushed in the forefront in Marvel, especially in the MCU right now, between Sam, the Wakandans, Riri Williams is about to start getting her push soon in the Avengers and stuff. Like there's a lot of black people there. I'm like, can we start putting more of an emphasis on the characters? Like they even put in Echo, who's Native American to a certain extent. So I'm like, I would like to start seeing more of an emphasis on some of the other underrepresented cultures, just because I feel like, not that I'm saying black people that we will ever have enough or have our fill, but I'm like, okay, let's start sharing this a little bit more and start working as a marginalized people and not just us. And at least as far as these go, just to make sure that everybody's represented and we're not just giving. I don't want it to be a thing to where we're just becoming the thing we hate, to where we're just taking over and putting black. Again, some people will like that, and I kind of understand why that, but I don't want it to just be like, all right, instead of putting white faces everywhere, we'll put black faces everywhere, and then nobody's represented but us. And I'm like, okay, we just became the thing we complained about forever. Let's make sure everybody gets their turn in the light as far as that goes.
Yeah, like how they did in Miles Morales. Like, he's black, he's an Afro-Latino. So, he's got his dad and he's got his mom who, like, when she snaps at him, like she's snapping like a mother would. And like the little remember in was it this Into the Spider-Verse where she snapped and like the little Puerto Rican flag came out?
Yeah,
like, that was a creative choice that I really admired and really loved. And it's like, yes, like nobody's, like everybody's mixed with something at this point. Like, well, not everybody, but there's so many different mixtures of cultures, so you can show multiple sides of one character. They ain't got to be just one, ethnic group. There can be a multitude of things, and that's how you get like really interesting perspectives, because people who are coming from two different backgrounds have really interesting stories. So like, it doesn't have to be just one group. We can definitely mix it up there. So yeah,
that's why I get really scared whenever I whenever there's certain, like in the scene with Lonnie, to the point the one you talked about, I get very scared in that, because I'm like, okay, I understand what they're about to do here. They're about to transition to him going home, because I'm like, okay, he's usually smiling and putting on a face, but when Peter left, I'm like, you can see something's eating at him and something's bothering him, and he's walking home. I'm like, okay, cool. Is this either about to be a thing to where he's about to go do some crime on the side that we aren't aware about, or is he about to go home? And as you start to see him go home,
I was hoping it was not that.
I was scared.
To go sell her back to a fiend,
right? Like this is how he's getting into school. And as we start to see him go home, we're like, okay, he's getting in the ghetto now. Okay, he's getting looked at by police now. I'm like, okay. I felt like, I'm like, okay, we maybe start to get a little heavy-handed here. Like at this point, we've had a microaggression from a mom and her white child on the train. We've had the cop just looking at him. When we get into this house, please do not let him be living in a trap house. And luckily, okay, cool. He was living in like a regular home with like a regular black family that just happened to be living in that kind of an area. I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And then we saw how supportive he is and how he just has a lot of responsibility being the oldest black man in the household. Granted, his dad's still there, but I think he feels like he has a lot of responsibility that he has to take on in that scenario. Yeah. But I was like, okay, cool. We did okay here. We did okay. We didn't do too much. Because that's what I was definitely scared it was going to be like him in a crack house. He was going to like be selling drugs to pay for school and everything. I was scared like it was going to be like the worst possible
6 or
scenario.
7 siblings running around. He's got a grandma to take care of. Ain't no dad or mama in sight.
I'm like, bro. And that's where I do want to bring up and this has been a big point of discussion as well, the quote by the guy playing Spidey about the lead actor.
Yeah, Hudson
he says Banks. He said his biggest fear was that the Disney Plus series was going to be annoying and woke. And let me find the actual quote here that he did when he was talking to the Collider. He said, I thought it was awesome. I mean, my biggest fear was that it was going to be annoying and woke, and it wasn't. And I was like, yes, this is great. It's so well written. Like, it feels real. I'm the oldest of 5 boys, so I feel like I kind of know what's happening in their lives in high school, and it felt like it was doing that justice. Now, I will say, I think a lot of people took this quote kind of out of context because the clips I saw of people talking about it, it was a lot of, oh my God, he should apologize for saying it was going to be woke and he's tanking the show.
Saying, I'm not watching the show because of what he said. I refuse to watch it because of what he said. How dare he be anti-woke? Right. I'm like, yo, y'all bug. But I get it. I totally get it. But please go on.
Yeah, I just think he just used the wrong verbiage. Like, I think if he did say annoying and woke, people would not care. If he used like heavy-handed or any other word, I don't think it would be taken as much. And I think this is just, I think this entire show and scenario got blown to be bigger than it was because of Connors being black. Because I didn't hear anybody complaining or even looking at this show twice up until that snippet of Dr. Connors came out, and then the internet blew up about it. And then that
Harry
interview came
Harry
out.
And
Harry as well. Yeah.
Which is like,
well, black people. I'm not mad at it. We've seen the jokes. We've seen all like the waves. I think there are other versions.
Dipping making these hoes seasick since 1994. What are you talking about? And like that brought up an interesting point because most of black people were just like, yo, he always had the waves, and people were like, well, okay, is he light skinned? Is he that? He's not light skinned, and it's like, did they adopt that look because one, maybe the artist saw something different in white folks' hair, like gel or whatever, and just thought they would draw like that, and then it wouldn't look like waves, or somebody saw waves and just like, yo, I like that. Let me put it on this character, and just like without any like cultural sensitivity or whatever, they just decided to adopt that. You know what I mean? So it was a really interesting choice back then, and they stuck with it too. Like it reappeared in the comic books as well,
with the receding hairline too. That's the crazy thing. You gave him waves with the Vegeta. You gave him waves with the Vegeta.
Vegeta. Oh man, yeah, insane work, and I'm glad they kind of played off of that meta too. I'm trying to find I'm trying to think of like another example where the character's design played off of what people were saying in the meta already.
Yeah,
and then they went with that creative choice. So
I know, like Knuckles. Probably, I think a lot of people thought like Knuckles was black coded, so you get Idris Elba to voice act him, and I see that. And even then, I think like the original design of Norman, like if I remember, I know my friend Kaori, she's the comic historian, and some of the earlier versions that she showed me of like Norman Osborn in the comics, like way back in the day in the Stan Lee era, like there were versions where he was black and darker skinned and like light skinned. Okay. Shout out to my guy Captain Inu. He pulled up to the stream. But yeah, for the most part, yeah, the race swaps are interesting. And Norman is another interesting thing too, because I'm like, okay, he's black now, but again, how does this change how he interacts or perceives the world? Or I don't know. In situations like this, I would love to see, is this a creative choice by the creator, or is this like an editorial choice? Because I did a recent interview with Muewa Adeyele, was the writer for the Storm run right now. And he was talking about how like some of the design choices or some of the characters that are in stories were an editor choice that he just had to work with. Like it was, I didn't want this, but this is what I was told we had to run with. So I just wrote my story around this, or we had this thing around this. So that's why I'm always so hesitant on stuff like this to see like, okay, is this a marketing ploy or just a creative interaction?
Yeah, because what if a writer doesn't want to write that? Like, how are they going to work through not wanting to write something the way they thought they would in their heads? And that's like the challenge of a writer, but definitely like a skill that a writer needs to have if they're working in this type of environment, especially with like comic book characters where there's so many different versions of this character and so many different writers who have had their hand on this character. How do you write that character and then make it, adjust, for all sides? How do you appease or appeal the person paying you, who's paying your bills, and then how do you appeal to the fans and appease the fans, especially like longtime fans who've been reading for decades, like, and then even newer fans who are just like, how are you going to bring them in? You feel me? So it's a very tricky game. So shouts to anybody who's in that field at all, because it's definitely a challenge for sure.
I'm not gonna lie to you. Another thing that made me question that was the intro. Because I'm like, okay, what is with this 2003 ass like cartoon opening here, where you just generic rap song for the opening?
I like the rap, actually. I ain't mad at it. Like, it's like, I feel like it was fresh to me. Like, I didn't go too like, mad auto tune or anything like that. The guy's rapping or whatever. Like, so I'm glad that didn't happen. And like, even in like certain scenes where there's hip hop playing, it doesn't feel like too typical. So I didn't mind it so far. I'm gonna listen to it again and like read the lyrics, because sometimes the lyrics actually throw me off. What is it, like Spider-Man swinging through? I don't know.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the English dub version of the Dragon Ball GT opening, where they had DJ D-Rec rap it.
Step into the Grand Tour. Yeah.
That's what it reminded me of. And I was like, okay. And I think in seeing that, and also to your point, like seeing like some of the party scenes and how these high schools are, it definitely feels like this isn't the Spider-Man 97. This is something meant for a new generation. Because I was interested to see how like they were gonna play the dynamic of Peter, and how he interacts with his schoolmates. And like, he hasn't been bullied not one time since he's been in this school. Like, nobody's picked on him, nobody's called him a name. Flash Thompson isn't around. Like, this is it feels like a. And again, I haven't been in high school in a good bit, so I don't know if bullying just ended in high school, and at least in that fashion, in traditional fashion like that. And I like, it's interesting. It's interesting, like how the way they interact, because like everybody's cool with one another to a certain extent, especially in a school like this. And I feel like that's why I'm like, okay, this has to be a kid show, because there's not enough. Like, Peter's not going through enough difficulty in life, at least so far. Because now, again, the ending of the second episode, things could get cranked up to 1,000. But so far, he's been chilling for the most part. Like, his friends are understanding.
Having a good time.
And like, I almost was like, okay, are they about to make Peter a fucking villain? Because the first bit of adversity he gets, and this is a spoiler warning for people that are watching this. Like, he has a crush on a girl, and he built up the courage to ask girl out. Somebody asked the girl out before him, and now his immediate thought isn't to be like, yeah, you know what, I missed out. He's like, how can I take her from him? I'm going to show her that I'm smarter, that I'm doing this, that. I'm like, that didn't feel like Peter Parker to be. Like, I feel like Peter would have kind of let that go and moved on from that. Like, he would have took it on the chin.
Yeah. I definitely want to see his vulnerabilities kind of come out and see how other characters play on those vulnerabilities, especially the way Norman Osborn's moving. I'm like, okay, where does this happen at? What's the thing that's going on? What's gonna, like, he's got a good life, he's got the hot aunt, you know what I mean? He's in the school that's full of geniuses. It's not just like the regular high school, which, to your point, he's not getting bullied because everybody's already a genius. So like, everybody has to really bully him about. The closest thing to a bully is that old bastard who's like the science leading that team of engineers. That's the closest to being bullied he's been so far. So I'm wondering if that's going to show up even at all. But I think that'd be interesting, like how other villains, because he's only a few months in, he hasn't really fought. He's been fighting street thugs. So what happens when a villain with a certain agenda, who like understands psychology and how they can break Spider-Man in more than one way, what happens when they start to show up? You feel me? So like you said, man, a lot of good stuff lining up. When you're ready to return back to the whole thing about it, about Hudson Thames saying it was woke and then people reacting to it, let me know.
We can go back into it, because we're kind of bouncing around right now.
Okay,
go ahead.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So, like I said, a lot of people were just like, they heard it and they're just like, oh my God. And like, so I said at the beginning of like if not at the end of 2024, then at the beginning of 2025, like, yo, we need to take the word woke back, because I've been so like annoyed that certain people who are like considered conservative, or even like liberal people, who are like changing the term woke, right?
Yeah.
Because like when I was coming up, and as I was maturing, woke meant something totally, like, it meant enlightened, it meant like aware of your surroundings, it meant conscious. So like, it's the 2000s, you see a brother maybe with a dashiki on or some type of top like that, he probably got the gold ankh around his neck, you feel me? He might drop a dime on knowledge to you, and you're like, oh man, that brother is woke. Like, it was a compliment, like, yo, that brother is woke right there, that sister is woke, they're in tune on, like, on a higher frequency. And then, so it was cool. And then at some point, you got those people who are like a little too, like, pushing they enlightenment a little too much.
Super hoteps.
And it's like, yo, you too woke for me, bro. Like, yeah, like before, like hotep was a thing. And like, it was, and like, again, hotep meant peace. Like, that's a greeting of peace. And amongst certain people. So like, even that term became more of like an insult or whatnot. And that's kind of what happened with woke. But people would be like, yo, you're trying to push a little too heavy. I'm like, you're a little too woke for me, right? And then at some point we started to already change the definition of it. And then like, as time went on, we started to identify woke with like pushing a certain type of agenda. But then other people adopted that, and it's like, oh yeah, that means like, you're trying to implicate the push for Black representation, and you have an agenda for like gay, LGBTQ, you got all these other agendas, and that's when it like kind of spiraled out of whatever. But then people were like accepting that the misuse or the redoing of a term, or the representation of a term, redefining. People were accepting that, and I think that people in that redefining or fighting back against that redefining, they're kind of playing into it even more, right? So for example, in the moment people says, oh, this is too woke, like Assassin's Creed or whatever else, and they're just like, no, it's not woke because and it's just like, if you don't give them power over that word, then you kind of take that attitude away. You know what I mean? So if somebody says like, oh, this thing is woke, and I'll be like, that's not what woke means. It's like, no, no, that's not what woke means. Like, you totally have it wrong. Like, find other words to describe what you're feeling right now. Oh, you don't have one, right? Because you don't even know why you're only using this word because you saw other people using it.
Right.
You don't even know the history that's attached to it. So you can't use that to piss me off, because I have a total different definition of what this means. So find something else. Right. So I think that's how we kind of reclaim that term. And like, even the term anti-woke, I didn't know that was a thing until like today, when I was looking through my comments and people were saying like they don't want to support somebody who's anti-woke. And I'm just like, no, like, anti-woke means you're being like, you're not conscious, you're in the matrix, like you're plugged in. Right. You know what I mean? So give less power to that word, and then people will stop trying to use it against you. And especially as we've seen with this regime of people who are far right or whatever, they definitely have weaponized that term, and it's been a sick case. But I think that's some of the ways that we can, if we can't physically take that power back, we have to think about it, and that's how we reclaim it. So just some thoughts that I've been thinking these past few days.
Sad enough, dog. I think it's too far gone. I think it's going to be a thing where we're just going to have to go to a different word now. Because to your point, I think it's almost like the, I mean, it's not as bad as the N word, but I think it's so far gone to where like they understand it makes you mad. It's almost like when you're a little kid and you're doing something just to make your sibling mad. You're just kind of poking at them, like, even because you don't really care about what they're mad at. You're just saying it to piss them off, and I think that's what it is at this point. It's they're going to keep like beating the dead horse, trying to be funny, or using it in that manner, because they understand that it has a historical connotation to us, the people.
But they're going to keep using it if we keep like reacting to it. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you just stop like feeding into it, then it's like just what any bully or any sibling, like, once you kind of like stop paying attention to that negative behavior, they'll try to do something else. You know what I mean? So I think there's a way that people can do it, but they have to stop feeding into it, and that's what makes it easier to move on to the next step. Because I mean, of course, they're going to find something else to piss you off about, but at least that one thing is protected. That's my perspective of it anyway. So And that's how I've kept my peace too. Like I've been so like unbothered by certain shit because I just don't feed into it. I'm just like, yo, listen, I'd rather post a link for you to have to be educated by it than trying to go back and forth trying to change your mind. Like, yo, the evidence is right here. You don't have to go back and forth on all these fucking comments. Like, go to a damn library and you'll see that all these black people weren't inventing these things or this history that exists. And then don't get mad at me because you didn't go read and go see this very common, not a very easy knowledge to get a hold of. That's on you. You don't want to go to educate yourself. So unless you want to battle me with links, go right ahead. Drop a link that is an actual true source that's credible. Go ahead, and we gonna see who matches up after that. So that's what I got to say about it. Because it's not like what's going on my shirt right here. It's not like you, right? So
yeah, man, it's this shows an interesting case, and I do think that. I'm interested to see how well it performs in regards to viewership because I feel like you're gonna have to have people that are gonna hate watch it, looking for the wrong things. And part of me feel, again, to your point, well, to my point earlier, I think this is a marketing ploy at this point. I feel like these studios are filming these things or creating these things and knowing that if they race swap somebody, you're a bare minimum going to have people hate watching it. And you're going to bare minimum have people that want to watch it just defend it, to be like, all right, well, you're wrong here. Because at this point, at this point, it's kind of a genius thing. Because again, I didn't have any intentions of checking this out, but I know I had to do my content creator thing and kind of make sure that I'm doing my due diligence of actually watching the show, formulating an opinion on it. So I watched it. I'm like, oh, this is actually a solid show. So this may keep some people on board in regards to how solid it is and how well knowledgeable the people that created this are of the Marvel universe, at least as of now, because again, they have potential to go down a lot of routes from the magic stuff with Nico, because in the comics she essentially has this family staff that is blood magic, that where she can like say a word to conjure a spell, but she can't ever say the same word twice, if I remember right. It's this really complicated artifact that's been passed down to her family. And I thought maybe she's wearing it around her neck. I don't know, or even if she has any knowledge of it, or maybe they won't even use it at all. But like these characters that they're putting in, you can go down a lot of routes from magic stuff to the street level thug stuff with Lonnie and Daredevil. There's a lot of things here, and there's a lot of similarities to the MCU. Obviously, like at this point, the way Strange looks and the way his magic works with like the portals, like the sling rings, they're very much synonymous with how everything's going over in the MCU, as well as they almost like scene for scene recreated the Iron Man introduction in the I think in I almost said No Way Home, but it's in Civil War, where Tony's sitting here living, like he's coming home and Tony's sitting there living with his auntie. And then I'm thinking, oh, is Tony here? I'm like, oh, it's Norman. Okay, is Norman about to be this world's version of his Tony Stark, like a bigger mentor that has access to stuff for him? Which I think is the case, because I saw in like the trailers that he's wearing like the Future Foundation suit, which was a Reed Richards thing, but as far as I know now, Reed Richards hasn't been introduced, so it'll probably be a suit that Norman gives him, and I think that's how that go here. Like Norman will be supporting him as a mentor for a little bit, and then show his true colors later on and flip up, and it'll be a whole thing, which I'm cool with. And it's a somewhat of a fresh take, but I don't know, man. I feel like, from my perspective, with a lot of things, if you're going to change stuff up, change it up. And again, prime stuff is going on with prime example being the things they're doing right now with the Ultimate Comics, right? So for people watching, they pretty much did a new Ultimate Universe, and in this version of Peter Parker, he becomes Spider-Man in his like 30s. He already has kids. He's already married to Mary Jane, and he becomes Spider-Man as a grown-ass adult. And then Norman Osborn is essentially like he's the Green Goblin, but they get this futuristic armor from Iron Man that came back in time for them. So now, like Norman's like he's like Iron Machine to this world now, and then there's a different version of Venom. They're doing a lot of different things that are outside of the box, and that's my thing. I'm like, okay, they set up a lot of dope stuff, and this Peter does seem a little different. This Peter does seem a little bit more, I can't say emotional, because I think Peter's in general always been an emotional character, but he seems a lot more, I guess, at the whim of his, I guess we'll say his hormones for now. Because my biggest thing was like with the Pearl thing, he lost his love interest, and his immediate thought was, oh, I can take her back. Like it was a toxic thought. It was a 17-year-old, 15-year-old thought process. It wasn't like the normal Peter Parker where I'm like, oh, I'll graciously bow out now. It was like, no, I want my girl still. I don't know, man. The
I
show's
thought
good
that
though.
scene was. I thought that scene was lovely too. The way that it went from, "Oh, I'm jealous of this guy. He ain't shit. Yeah, he ain't nothing," and then it turned into like, "No, Pete." Like Lonnie was like, "Y'all, no, I thought you were dope as fuck, bro. Like you smart as hell, bro. I'm trying to get like you, bro." Like
Yeah.
I thought that was such a nice interaction. It just felt like a really peaceful moment, and that's what I liked. Again, from going away from like the bullying, the typical. Because when I saw the guy just like off the lineup of characters, I'm like, "Oh, is that the new Flash Thompson? Who's gonna bully Peter now?" You know what I'm saying? So I'm glad it wasn't that. I'm glad that it's one that Lonnie is who he is, but I'm also glad that their interaction is pretty much peaceful, which could change. Because if he's supposed to be Tombstone or he's supposed to be a villain or something like that, how is that going to change? And like you said, is he going to stay on that side, or is Peter going to try to find a way to convince him? As Spider-Man too, because I'm assuming he's going to keep that mask on and then try to, or not. Maybe somehow they find out that who their secret aliases are, and it becomes a whole thing. So it's just so many ways this could go.
And I think that'll be like that. It will be my prime example of like how good or bad the writing for this show was or is, in my opinion, is how they flip some of this stuff up in regards to how things get bad for Peter. Because like I said before, as up till now, he hasn't faced a lot of adversity outside of the regular responsibility of being Spider-Man, of having to save somebody, but then you can't have a personal life and then you can't have a professional life. So you have to balance those three out. I'm waiting for him to go through some strife. And I think, again, we're about to see that with Norman now. And to your point, I think Lonnie will probably be the biggest thing, because I can kind of see it on the wall now where the plot line for him is going to be he needs money for his family to get them out of the hood or to fix his mom's car. Maybe his dad gets sick and he's going to go about looking to get money in ways that aren't the best way. And that's how you kind of, maybe he tries to steal from Oscorp. And then I'm assuming the Tombstone thing is going to be some form of a chemical reaction, because in the comics, it was like a thing he was born with. So okay. I'm assuming this is going to be a thing. Either maybe he's a mutant. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I feel like it's going to be a thing to where he kind of leans towards crime, because he has to do all this work just to be, just to stay on at a median of being a good student and being a good son at home as well. So he's going to have a lot of depth to him. I'm excited to see what they do a lot more with Nico, because again, one of the dope things about Nico and her abilities in the Runaways, her mom was evil. Like her mom's a villain. Okay. So I don't know if you've seen the Runaways live action show, because it was
I haven't.
It was on Freeform a while ago. They did Runaways and they did Cloak and Dagger.
Okay. Oh yeah.
But the Runaways is probably one of my more favorite like mini teams in Marvel, because essentially the whole way thing is that it's a group of kids and all their parents are in like this Illuminati evil cult where they're murdering people and manipulating things, and all the kids have some sort of ability or thing to make them strong. Like one girl found out she's an alien and her parents are aliens. Nico, her mom's a witch and she has the staff, which is a family heirloom. Another girl finds out that her parents were geneticists and they built a dinosaur that she's telepathically connected with. So it's almost like Moon Girl. It's the Runaways are cool. I really fuck with the Runaways heavy, but
okay. I didn't hear much about them after, when the show came out. Nobody really said anything, so I was like, all right, well, how do I feel about it? Because some things I'm willing to take a chance on. Other things I'm like, I don't want to waste my time. Like Madam Web, I knew I didn't want to watch that shit when I first saw it. I'm just like, all right, let me wait to what people say before I go spend some money on it or whatnot. Because I'm just like, I don't even know who these people are. Like, what are y'all doing? So
it's I think it's worth the start. A bare minimum is worth the start to watch to see if you would enjoy it, because it's at level, if not a little bit better than like the CW is probably up with, like at that point.
Yeah.
So depending if you're like our guy Otis, you're like fuck everything like that. Maybe you'll hate it. Maybe you'll hate it. But if you enjoy things that are just mid, if you enjoy some mid, it'll be a cool little mid watch. It'll be a cool little mid watch.
Okay, all right, bet I'm with it.
But yeah, to that point, there's a lot of characters here. I know I keep like hitting at that point. I keep going to it for the factor of showing that this show has a lot of potential. Right now, it's probably like a good like 6 out of 10 for me. It's like a 6, maybe a 7. Probably more of a 6 because of the animation. But it has potential to be like a 9 or a 10 if you execute these plot lines right, because you have so many characters with abilities in the comic books to have unique stories in the comics that can put them all kinds of ways and help Peter develop as a hero as time goes on. So I'm like, okay, let's make sure that we're doing our due diligence to write this out well. And according to James, or Mr. James, the guy that's the lead role for Spider-Man right now, the guy that's voicing him, he says
Hudson Thames.
Hudson Thames. He says it ended up being good. He was scared of it being woke and annoying, but he says it's great. So we'll see how it goes. I'm really skeptical on certain things, obviously, from the way the animation looks, because that's gonna be my big thing that'll probably take down some of the ratings for me. Because if you're an animated Spider-Man show, the one thing you have to get right is the Spider-Man action and the Spider-Man swinging animation. So again, I'm trying to stay even kill about this show. I didn't have a lot of expectations before watching it because I wasn't looking forward to it like that. I was kind of, at this point, only thing I'm waiting for Marvel-wise is the Captain America movie. And that's the only thing I've been waiting for because I'm an Anthony Mackie fan. I fuck with Captain Falcon, even though the comics are ass right now. But
they cooking out, man.
That shit. That's the prime example of like marketing.
Right,
that whole book was ass, and people gassed that book up because it had a cookout with popular black characters in it. That shouldn't have been there. That book is buns. That book is buns. Shit. That comic run is buns right now.
Crazy.
Please don't buy that shit. If you want to support some black, go read the Storm run. Please don't buy that shit.
Yo, so see, because I bought a number one of Captain America, Sam Wilson. I bought it just because I wanted to have it for my showcase, right?
Right.
But then like the Storm thing, I bought number one, but I wasn't sure that I didn't want to subscribe to it because I bought a Storm run a few years ago, and that shit was ass. Like this shit was bad. Like I rarely buy bad comics, and that one was fucking terrible. And so for this one, I'm like, okay, how was this one different? Like I saw an interview with the writer. I'm like, okay, some potential here, but I can't trust that anymore. I gotta actually see how it comes out. And I didn't even read the first issue yet, but I did see people, talking about the Storm and Doctor Doom thing, and then people started to like ship Doctor Doom and Storm. I wanted to punch everybody in their fucking face because how dare you? But but this one seems like it's going pretty well, so I'm looking forward to finally reading it.
I'm making all my friends that are. My friend Greg, he has been in and out of comics for a while, but he loves Storm. I'm like, bro, if you love Storm, you'll love this. To me, this going forward will be the definitive Storm run. Like this will be like if you want to introduce somebody to Storm, have them read this book because it does a good job of, in my opinion, encompassing everything that she is the character, from the maternal figure, the warrior, the leader. And like just in the first issue, like when you're reading through it, they're kind of like they do this dope thing where it's starting off with the monologue and kind of letting you know who she is and catching you up to where the world is looking like after Krakoa, because this is after the end of them being on Krakoa and whatever else. Okay. And you're in her closet, and as you're going through her closet, you're seeing all the different outfits that and looks she's had over the years. And they're kind of describing her as an individual, while also having all those different things going through the background there. And you see her, right now they're kind of doing this thing where she's going back into each individual or significant group she's had interactions with or relationships with to kind of show you where she is now and how far she's came. Like she went back home to see the X-Men, had bonded, her and Wolverine smashed, and that kept going forward. Yeah, I'm like that. I understand that's a thing, but it always feels weird to me when it happens.
Always.
She's going to go back to Wakanda at some point. I know in issue 6 she's going to get Wakandan armor. She meets up with Doom, Doom's been a big person for her in the history of comics as far as her getting some of her more powerful forms. And then issue 7 is, according to the writer, issue 7 is going to be the one for him because you're going to have a collection of all the thunder gods from different cultures are going to come together in like a council, I guess. So you'll see Thor, you'll see Storm, Susanoo is like from Japan, and a lot of other people. So far the story is showing her as her history as an individual, and it's kind of her ascending to be a god at the same time.
Damn.
She's like her Eternal Storm right now is like she's like probably on par with like the Phoenix.
Damn,
she's broken right now. She's broken right now.
That's fucking fantastic because she is like, I mean, for all intents and purposes, like the Black Panther of Black women as superheroes. Like that's about as good as it fucking gets with Storm. You know what I mean? Like again, I saw the resurfacing. I'm like, okay, so they're either talking about it because it's just a thing, or it's actually good, and that's why they're making memes of her comics showing her feet off, like putting her feet up into the camera like this. Them freaky boys can get their things off.
The art is fire. Like she's a fucking fashionista in this fucking run, bro. Like they give her some amazing dresses and shit. Like she look. I was like, let's don't be a real person, bro. Let me.
Man,
I ain't never wanted a goon so bad before.
Come on. Oh man, fantastic. All right, cool. I'm
But
definitely
yeah.
gonna read into it, and hopefully on my TikTok I can start to make some media around it because I've been slacking on TikTok. I gotta get back into it because I'm about to start things up again. So yeah, real soon. Yeah.
But yeah, man, because we're about almost an hour in. Is there anything else in particular in regards to the show you kind of wanted to hammer home real quick?
That was it, man. 2 episodes in, things are going good so far. There's a lot of things, conversations around it. I just encourage everybody to just see things for yourself, and not be swayed because of something you see online. So just go for it. And if you like it, you like it. You don't like it, it's fine. It's plenty of things. Disney ain't losing no money. They'll be okay. You know what I mean? So do what you got to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So people that are interested in, but people that are here not for the drama and just want to know how good it is. Again, it's a solid like 6 out of 10 for me so far. A lot of potential. A lot. Like the ceiling for it is an 11 out of 10. The floor is a 6 right now for me. But I do think it's worth checking out to see how you enjoy it. There's a lot of nuance with some of the characters, and there's a lot of characters that are in Spider-Man lore or just in Marvel comics in general that are making an appearance here. So I suggest people at least give it a chance. And in regards to a lot of the drama over the blackwashing, quote unquote, as of yet, I will hold my reservations on that because there's a lot of representation here. Like Pearl, the character Pearl, he's a crush on. She's Filipina. So like you have a Filipina character, you have black characters.
Wave?
Yeah, Wave. That's what that is. Yeah.
Oh shit. Oh, okay. All right. That's that connection. Okay, cool. Nah, that's great. That's great. Because I never read Wave. I read like maybe one Atlas of Atlantis comic. But I was just like, yeah, no, I like Wave. That's what's up. All right, cool. All right, so we got her. We got Amadeus Cho. We got some age representation up in here. All right,
age representation.
Yeah.
Deco's Japanese too, so you got like literally 3 different types of just like Japanese flavor in the show.
Yeah, right. One of them is a dark skinned Asian with being Filipino. So that's great stuff. I like to see that. Yeah, this is great.
Has a lot of potential, a lot of ways for people to be represented in this. Because I think this is either going to go one or two ways. It's going to be a show that's going to be very kid-like, probably more like the Ultimate Spider-Man tone of things and how that was with Drake Bell, how that seemed more happy-go-lucky, or it's going to shift into like the more 90s animated series side of things, where things were a lot more darker and adult-oriented storylines. Which again, maybe there's a balance in between that you can kind of get to, but I would hope for the darker stuff just because I like to see my Spider-Man struggle and go through strife, man. Because I want to see him grow a lot of this stuff. Yeah. And see where the story takes people. But again, I don't want to ramble all day. So thank you to everybody that has been pulling up for your boy. Shout out to Captain NU for a comment. He said he's checking in on the way flying back home. Shout out to everybody that's been pulling up, man. Again, y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments below if you're watching this later on. If you have any thoughts on this, again, you can find me here at Captain Diesel's Dojo, as well as pretty much any other platform and social media platform. You can either put in Captain Diesel or Cat Diesel 24. And you want to tell people, Ace, you want to tell people where they can find you on what platforms?
Absolutely, yeah. Find me on Instagram, Ace_the Outsider, TikTok, Ace_the Outsider. I also have Blue Sky and Spill under the same aliases. So definitely check me out on there. Blue Sky is like looking pretty good. Spill is like still in development. I'm like, okay, this is cool. This is like a little different, but it's still developing the app itself. So check me out on there. And as far as like events, I'm also doing Hidden Village is my organization. We're doing cosplay parties and everything like that up in Buffalo, New York. Things are looking really good for the lineup of 2025. So definitely check us out at Hidden Village 716. And then I'm also going to be restarting my project. Speaking of, things getting new life, Wakanda Alignment will be one of the new projects that I'm working on, where we're going into various Black comics and talking about the African diaspora and how it influences various stories. So if you're in the Buffalo area, February 17th, during Black History Month, Black Infinity Month, as I'm calling it, there's a week off that kids have for like midwinter break. And like, that's a week that are away from schools, not learning anything or whatever during Black History, Black Infinity Month. And so we're taking advantage of one of those days, and I'm gonna do a black superhero showcase where I'm bringing in like a majority of my black superhero comics. I'm talking Black Panther, Storm, Icon and Rocket, Hardware, Static, a whole bunch of other like indie joints like the Tuskegee Airs and Excellence and everything like that. Like bringing all these different things so people can see how wide a variety that superheroes exist in, black superheroes exist in, and trying to also find assisting texts like black people who have worked in science or science fiction or like historians or martial arts or whatever, like all these different things that influence people to create these amazing stories. And so I'm doing that to kick off my project, Wakanda Alignment. So I don't have a separate page for it just yet, but just check out Hidden Village or Ace the Outsider, and you'll definitely see more from me on there.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to my people at Blerd, blerd.com. Always ripping them. And yeah, yo.
Oh, yeah. See me in Marvel Rivals, bro. See me in Marvel. Ace the Outsider on PSN, man. Run game, okay? I'm gold 17 right now. No, I'm playing. I'm bronze 3. Let me relax. Let me put the mic back down. I'm still bronze.
It's a new season, man. You still got time. You got time. I'm still, I'm
that
gold.
game
I'm gold 3 right
over
now.
My life, bruh. Oh my god.
I think it's taking over for a lot of people. Like everybody I know that doesn't have the time to play it is playing the hell out of it right now.
Yo, yeah, they're playing right now. I know it's like 7 people I know on that shit right now, and I'm about to go join them. So yeah,
I got the squad's pulling up tonight. We're gonna be on for a little bit tonight.
Word, I bet. CDs, y'all, appreciate you having me again, bro. It's always a pleasure to get up and talk the geek stuff with you for sure.
Yeah. So I saw the video. I'm like, okay, I gotta get him on here so I can make sure I have a different opinion on this or a different perspective.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, for people that can expect what's coming from me, you can expect the fan casting video for the Storm stuff and the Cynthia Revo conversation, how that was kind of toxic. I kind of wanted to address that, so that'll be coming out soon. And then nice. Big stream on the way. My guy Damo from the Let's Keep It a Buck podcast is going to be coming on soon. I think the 8th is the day he's coming on. So next week, I can expect that. It's going to be a big guest. I'm excited. Hopefully, I can have my PC running tip-top shape by then because I don't want any fucking issues at that point. But thank y'all so much for pulling up. Ace, thank you for pulling up. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.